Okay, basically, Italy is the seventh country in Europe by surface. Our population is close to 59 million people, quickly, I would say, declining and aging, unfortunately. Our building stock is close to 12.5 million buildings. 88% are residential, and almost 75% of them are private. And this is a problem for what it takes, as we will see, the need to renovate them. Why? Because almost 70% of homes have been built before the entering into force of our legislation regarding the energy efficiency and anti-seismic rules. And more than 50% are more than 40 years old. So there is a huge need to renovate, to improve the efficiency and also the structural characteristics of the buildings. Problem is that for this we need money, because since most of the houses belongs to people, and we said that 88% of buildings are private houses, it's difficult to convince people to invest in the efficiency of their homes, especially in this period, without incentives. On this respect, we lost a good opportunity at the beginning of the 20s, when our politicians, let's say, decided to release a law, a strange law, I would say, by which you could get 110 euros every 100 euros you invested in energy efficiency of houses. So as a result, first of all, prices skyrocketed, because no one was really interested in negotiating prices, since it were not his money. And second, the problem was that among the incentivized actions, ventilation was not included. So as a result, in a short time, let's say 3 to 6 months after the renovation, people started seeing molds flourishing on walls and ceilings, because of course, if you seal the envelope of your house and you do this in a proper way, the moisture inside cannot go out. So this is a problem. Just to give you an idea, this strange law, if you are not happy with your politician, have a look at ours and rejoice. This strange law cost the country 75.4 billion euros, and the result was a renovation of 360,000 buildings, over a total stock of something less than 12.5 million buildings. To achieve the targets, our targets stated by or set by the last release of the EPBD directive, we will have to renew around 1.8 million buildings in 10 years. So 180,000 buildings per year, which is difficult to imagine how to find or where to find the money to achieve this result. And the effects of this situation is clearly evident when you look at the status of the construction sector in Italy. Compared to 2022, we saw that the renovations of housings dropped by 22% last year, and is expected to drop by 30% this year. Why? Because in 2023, the positive effects of a super bonus finished. The only sector which is still quite strong in Italy is the one related to public works, and this mainly because of the positive effects of the PNRR, the name we gave to Next Generation EU European plan to promote our economy, the European economies after COVID, no? And you see that the public works are the only ones that are still growing. The problem is that the money will have to be spent within the next year, so possibly this positive effect will decrease dramatically starting from 2027. Types of ventilation, of course, we have exhaust fans, local heat recovery units, and centralized heat recovery units. When we talk of local heat recovery units, in Italy, you mainly think of push-pull units. Why? Because they are very popular due to the effects of the super bonus. People didn't foresee any solution to ventilate their houses. So when they found the problems after the renovation, the easiest and the simplest and the less expensive solution was to install push-pull units that are effective against the moisture, but unfortunately not the best solution to grant the proper levels of indoor air quality. Historically, in Italy, the ventilation systems are mainly extractor fans or exhaust fans. Why? Because there is no mandatory law forcing to install ventilation systems. Due to or thanks to our, let's say, favorable climate, the air exchange in our buildings were usually managed through windows opening. There was a mandate to, or it was mandatory to install ventilation system only in rooms without openings or where the ratio between openable surfaces and the floor area is below 1/8, so 12.5%. Just to give you an idea, the growth of ventilation units in the last 4 years, so from 2020 to 2024, has been limited to 6.2%. Exhaust fans represent 3/4, so 75% of total units sold, with push-pull units around 19%, and the centralized ventilation system with heat recovery mainly installed in new houses represents only 6% of the total. This is for the residential, let's say, sector. When we talk instead of non-residential sector, and we talk in this case of mainly air handling units, according to the Eurovent statistics in 2023, in Italy have been sold around 13,000 units, 70% equipped with plate heat exchangers. Rotary heat exchangers are not very popular at ours. 80% of products, roughly 80% of products, were equipped with water coil. The growth of air handling units or sales of air handling units was quite stable starting from 2016 up to 2019. Then there was a drop due to the COVID in 2020, and then the growth restarted. So far, not yet reaching the values achieved in 2019. Most of our air handling units are, let's say, small size. 85% of total have a nominal airflow less or maximum equal to 15 cubic meters per hour. Only 2% exceeds 50,000 cubic meters per hour. Finally, what do we expect from the future? There are, say, some positive ideas or some positive views coming from 2 legislation. The first one is what we call CAM, is minimum environmental criteria set for new buildings or for renovating buildings. This minimum environmental requirement include also minimum levels of ventilation to grant a good indoor air quality. In Italy, we refer to the European standard 16798/1. The second potentially positive effect will come from the implementation in Italy of the last release of the EPBD directive, which suggest or promote not only the energy efficiency of building, but also good levels of healthiness, and comfort for occupants. So this is the situation in Italy, and I leave you time later for potential questions. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Luca Alberto Piterà from AiCARR. I would like to thank AIVC for inviting me to contribute to this cooperative webinar on ventilation in Southern Europe. I would also like to thank my colleague who contributed to the IP document, especially Michele Zinzi from Enea and Marco Simonetti from Politecnico di Torino and Aldo Fumi. My presentation will focus on national regulation framework and required in Italy, complementing Aldo's previous presentation. In this presentation, I will briefly outline the legislative and standardization framework that regulate building ventilation in Italy. Although some energy competence are regional, all focus on the national level. Historical, as Aldo said, Italy has relied almost entirely on herring, with windows manually open for high renewable. Now a replacement in the last discussion in SEN working group. Mechanical ventilation was seldom required, only in 2 cases defined by Health Decree of July 1975, windowless toilet and room where the open window area is less than 1/8 of the floor area. It's important to take into account that are also local hygiene regulation, for example, in Milan, my city. Additional design criteria were later introduced, such as minimum outdoor intake heights above ground, and for air conditioning system, a minimum outdoor air supply rate about 20 cubic meters per hour per person, more or less 5 liters per second per person. Moving now from legislation to technical standards, then starting with a residential building. For almost 3 decades, UNI 10339 was the main reference in Italy for indoor air quality in a residential building. It was a design standard, prescriptive standard, define minimal flow rate about 40 cubic meters per hour per person, and require mechanical exhaust in kitchen and bathroom, along with the basic filtration and design criteria for components. Although not mandatory by law, it became de facto mandatory when referred by local building codes or national law. The standard was withdrawn in July 2024 with no direct replacement, creating a transitional period for designers and authorities. Today, the discussion is open, but the close reference is 1670-98 Part 1, part of the 1670-98 formally adopted for public residential building through the CM decree of June 2022. It's introduced 4 EAQ categories, free calculation method by area, occupancy, or both, making a shift from the prescriptive approach to gather responsibility for designers in selecting EAQ categories and calculating method. Moving now to non-residential building and how CM decree shape doing requirement there. In this building sector, 10339 was also used to define the minimum outdoor airflow per person according with the building use, different airflow rate for the different use of the building. Some building times remain regulated by specific law, such as 9075 for school or 9 decree of 9097 for healthcare facility, which define minimum air change per hour for operation theaters and for the school, different grades, different air change per hour. For other type of buildings, it's possible to refer to the closest standard 16798 Part 1 and Part 3. CAM decree established minimum environmental criteria, how Aldo said, for public building, for example, new construction and first renovation, compliance with 10339 class or class 2 of 1670-98 Part 1 is mandatory. For second level renovation or energy retrofit, class 2 is required, while class 3 is allowed only if technical justified. After the pandemic, the DCPM of July 2022 issued the IACU guideline for school require continuous monitoring of CO2, formaldehyde, particulate matter, 10 or 2.5, temperature and humidity, and setting out technical measures to maintain acceptable IAQ. Having reviewed design IQ criteria, let's now see how ventilation interacts with energy performance regulation in Italy. On energy side, the decree of June 2015 defined national methodology, minimum performance requirement, and guidelines for energy certification. The calculation follow a monthly semi-steady state approach, 11300 technical specification series, Italian technical TS, describe how to quantify energy needs for ventilation and infiltration, covering natural or mechanical or hybrid system, including night cooling. Efficiency is adjusted by control factor for efficiency, for example, occupancy, CO2, humidity control. Energy classification is based on comparison with a reference building that use a standard system, typical exhaust unidirectional ventilation unit if a mechanical ventilation is present in the project. No absolute limits are imposed. Performance threshold vary from project to project. The minimum electrical consumption for ventilation system range move between 0.25 or 0.5 watt-hour per cubic meter, depending on the system time. The upcoming Energy Performance Building Directive will further strengthen the link between energy efficiency, comfort, and health, expanding the role of ventilation in overall building performance. Moving on the inspection and hygiene requirements, the Workplace Safety Law 81 require HV system to be periodically inspected and cleaned and sanitized to protect the human health. The state region agreement of 2006 and 2013 define predictive maintenance protocol and operational procedure for hygiene control, including both visual and technical inspection with frequency determined by previous results. 1578 specified cleanliness classes and acceptable criteria for ventilation system. Maintenance activities must be recorded in the dedicated logbook. Current inspection is focused only on hygienic aspect, not energy and comfort performance, but this is expected to change with implementation of new energy performance needs. For more detailed data, example, and figure, I suggest you to download our VIP document. And what's next? Which is the next step? How Aldo said, the new European building directly introduce an integrated vision linking energy efficiency, decarbonize, and indoor environmental quality. It explicitly addresses IAQ requirement for member state, minimum IAQ level for new and renovated building, mandatory monitoring of IAQ and comfort parameter per periodic performance-based inspection and ventilation system. In this new framework, ventilation will no longer be seen as an accessory services, but a key element of health and sustainable strategies. Collaboration among designers, operator, and institution will be essential to ensure that these new requirements effectively translate into healthier and more resilient building. Thank you very much for your kind attention.